Good morning, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Collins from Farm Smart. We're so happy to have you joining us today for our third annual Read with the Farmer. Of course, normally we have the farmer go to your classroom to read, but we're all distance learning this year. So we're just so happy to have these farmers and growers and ranchers joining us to help us to read ag accurate books. That means a book that tells us true facts about agriculture and not made up things. So I also want to thank our sponsors today. We have the Imperial County Farm Bureau who has been to help with this. We have the Imperial Valley Vegetable Growers Association, an organization called IVH2O that helps learn more about water here in Imperial Valley. We have Farm Credit West that is sponsoring this event, and of course us here at Farm Smart. So I'm going to let Mr. Snow introduce a little bit about himself and tell about what he does briefly, and then get into our book right this very minute. So as you're reading, Mr. Snow, Shelby is going to be showing the book on the screen, and the students can follow along with the pages while you're reading. Okay?
As you know, my name is Steve Snow, and I'm in the cattle business. I'm the general manager of a feed yard here south of El Centro called Phillips Cattle Company, and we feed 28,000 head of cattle. Wow. Twice a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The book I'm going to read this morning is called Right This Very Moment, a table to farm book about food and farming. What's that you say? You're hungry for breakfast? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have stories of so many right here on your table. Right this very minute, in a citrus grove, a grower tests oranges for ripeness. When the fruit is ready, the harvesting crew will pick the oranges, which will be squeezed into juice you drink this morning, or you drink in the morning. Right this very minute, a new field on a wheat farm, a farmer drills furrows the perfect depth for seeds. Your pancakes were made with wheat that were grown, harvested, and then ground into flour. Right this very minute, a sugar bush with maple trees. A sugar maker replaced the old collection buckets with a new tubing system that carries the maple sap to a storage tank. The sap will be boiled down in evaporators until it becomes very thick and sweet, like the maple syrup you poured on your pancakes. What's that you'd say? You'd like a snack right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the knowledge of so many right there in your hands. Right this very minute, as the sun sets on a cranberry marsh, a grower starts protecting the crop from frost. The grower will be up all night checking the sprinklers that keep the plants from freezing. Also, cranberries can be part of your trail mix. Right this very minute, on a southern farm, a peanut farmer installs soil sensors to make sure the fields aren't too wet or too dry. The sensors help the farmer decide when and how much water to water these sensitive plants. What's that you say? It's time for lunch? Right this very minute. Then you need a farmer. You have the hard work of so many right here in your lunchbox. Right this very minute, a dairy farmer tends the cows. The cheese in your sandwich was made with milk from the cows that must be milked at least twice a day, every day, whether it's a weekend, a Saturday, a birthday, or a holiday. Right this very minute, till and test the soil for nutrients to make sure it's healthy before planting seeds that will grow into long, crunchy carrots. Right this very minute, an apple grower works with a beekeeper to bring beehives into an orchard. Hundreds of thousands of honeybees will pollinate the pale pink blossoms, helping each tree to grow many bushels of apples for you to enjoy. What's that you say? You're ready for dinner? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the pride of so many right here on your plate. Right this very minute, a cattle rancher moves the herd to a wide pasture to graze. She cares for the cows and welcomes their calves into the world. When the calves are old enough, they will move to new pastures or feed yards before they are harvested for the beef that will be made into hamburgers. Right this very minute, a farmer plans a crop rotation schedule to keep the soil healthy and grow more of the very best vegetables, like the potato you've got with broccoli and cheese. Right this very minute, some farmers prepare produce for delivery to grocery stores, and others box it up to sell at local farmers markets. Before the lettuce and tomatoes ever get tossed in a salad or put on top of a hamburger, they must travel from the farm to the hungry customers. What's that you say? You'd like dessert? Right this very minute. Then you need a farmer and sometimes a whole farming family. You have dedication of so many right here on your fork. Right this very minute, a grower checks the weather forecast in a family-owned strawberry patch where workers help hundreds of visitors pick their own strawberries. Right this very minute, a family checks their backyard coop to make sure the chickens have enough feed and fresh water. Then they collect eggs that get made into foods like shortcake in your bowl. What's that you say? You want to grow your own food right this very minute? Then you need to think like a farmer. You can help plant a garden right here in your community. Right this very minute, you and your friends, families, and neighbors can work together to choose which crops to grow in your gardens. In a few months, you will enjoy healthy snacks and meals made with the fruits and vegetables you harvest yourself. Every single day of the year, farmers tend to their crops and care for their animals and work hard to feed their families and yours. Next time you eat your breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, or dessert, remember that somewhere right this minute, there's a farmer to thank you for your delicious food. And if someday you decide to become a farmer, right that very minute, you'll be doing your part to feed the world too. And the end.
So I'm going to get started with the questions. I was wondering, I noticed one thing in the book, Mr. Snow, was that the person that was handling the cattle was a woman. So a lot of people think that farmers are just guys, but I know you work with some great cattle women too. So what women can be farmers too, right?
Women can be anything they want to be.
Exactly.
And I will tell you that my yard manager is a woman who grew up in Hopeville, had 4-H every year, raised livestock, went to college and got a degree in animal science, came back to the valley, and she's been working for me now for 8 years. And she can do anything a man can, that's for sure.
So do you think it would be important for kids to get more education or go to college, even for farming and agriculture?
Yes, one thing I always like to tell kids is they don't have to be from a farm family to farm. My father was a dentist. My grandparents were farmers, but I had no connections. I went to college, studied cattle, animal science, and then I worked my way up the ladder. So any kid, boy or girl, can succeed in farming, but yeah, you need to get educated for sure.
I know that you work with cattle, and we have visited, so far in our virtual field trips, we've visited a feedlot and we have visited a local dairy. But besides cattle, I know you to be involved in some other kinds of animals too. So can you share a little bit about what other kind of animals you have also that you deal with?
Okay, so I think you might be referring to chickens.
I am, yes.
I keep about 20 chickens next to my office, and I mostly give the eggs to my employees. Sometimes I give them to my banker's wife, who is in this room. Also, what I don't know, Stephanie may not know, but my yard manager and I have about 400 goats too.
Wow.
And we raise meat goats because in LA, there's many different cultures of people, and some of these cultures and ethnic groups prefer goat as their primary source of meat. And so we're raising them to meet that demand.
Awesome.
Any questions on goats?
So what is your favorite thing about agriculture?
Making food. Making food. And I will tell you something, you guys, in the United States, we make the safest and the highest quality food in the world, including beef, pork, and chicken. And that's because we have such good schools, and we're turning out such good students into the industry. So when you buy American produced food, it's generally going to be safer than any other food in the world.
Are you from the Imperial Valley?
No, I've actually been here for 15 years now. I came down here from Idaho, where I lived for 10 years. I ran a business that supplied products to the potato industry, and I raised cattle there as well. Prior to that, I lived in Hawaii for 8 years, where I started a cattle ranch for Dole Food Company on the island of Lanai. But I'm a native Californian. So I was raised in Ventura County. I went to college at UC Davis, just west of Sacramento, and I began my career after that.
Hey, Mr. Snow, your job sounds like a lot of fun. If I wanted to be a cattle woman when I grow up, what would be the first step I would do?
Well, you must be prepared to get dirty, and sometimes very dirty. You will walk through manure and not think twice about it. And you will work long hours.
Does everyone know what manure is? That is cow poop, boys and girls. Lots of cow poop.
Would you recommend going to college to be a cattleman or a cattlewoman, or could you just graduate high school?
I think with a lot of experience, you could just graduate high school, but what they teach you in college, which you don't really learn with experience, is the science that goes into food production. The science that goes into the rations we develop for the cattle to eat, so they will gain as fast as they can, so they can go to market as soon as they can. That's what comes with college, is the science.
Your most memorable experience as a rancher?
Gosh, I've had so many. Probably one of the most pleasurable experience, and I don't do it enough anymore, is to go out on a ranch and gather cattle. We don't do it at the feedlot, but we do it at the ranches before they come to the feedlot. And there's just no better way to spend the day than out on a horse, working with another crew of horse people and gathering the cattle, bringing them into the pens, and then sorting them. So for me, that's my nirvana.
Can you tell us a little bit about cattle feed and some of the things that we grow here in Imperial Valley that go directly to cattle?
That's a good question. So all these hay fields you see, some are Bermuda grass, some is Sudan grass, Klein grass, and then of course alfalfa. All those crops are consumed primarily in this valley by our 2 dairies or our 13 feed yards. There's 400,000 head of cattle on feed in the Imperial Valley, so it takes a lot of feed. So most of the hay products come from the valley, but we do have to bring corn in from the Midwest, and that corn comes in train cars. The train cars are unloaded and distributed to all the feed yards. Corn is the most important ingredient we feed because that produces the most energy that allows the animal to fatten the soonest. Cattle are vegetarians. They're not omnivores like we are. So cattle eat only plant products. And we have to figure out how to make them gain with only plant products.
Now, I heard there's some cattle that eat Twinkies.
Okay, so yes, we buy a product. There's a company in LA that goes around to all the Dorito factories, all the potato chip factories, all the bakeries, and collects their leftover food. They then dry it and grind it and put it in trucks and ship it to us, and we call that bakery. So I was at a feed yard in Mexico where they didn't grind the bakery. So you could actually go up to the commodity bin and find Cheetos and Doritos and probably a Twinkie or two. And some of the guys that were on breaks would actually go over to this commodity bin, have their Coca-Cola, and would eat Cheetos.
So
that would normally go to the cattle. But that's kind of the beauty of cattle, is we can feed them a lot of byproduct feeds that would normally waste from factories that would normally go to landfills. In fact, much of the stuff we would waste can be fed to cattle and produce a good quality protein.
So there's a question coming in about if it's fun, if your job is fun, but I'd like to also add to that, like what the hardest thing is.
The hardest thing are low cattle prices and high corn prices. And we're about to experience that right now. Corn has gone through the roof because of a terrible windstorm that took away 5% of the corn crop in the Midwest not too long ago. And prices, for some reason, demand is good, but prices are falling. So we're all a little scared right now on what's going to happen. So the most fun part is having good staff. Good staff makes your job so much easier, and I'm very fortunate to have excellent staff. The other hard thing is when their feedlot gets full, it's a logistical nightmare. Your customers want to keep sending cattle, and you have to keep telling them no until you have some room. So that part is hard. It's also very hard after rainstorms. You all know from living in this valley how hard we get hit by these these seemingly small storms, but they can sure put the mud up in the feed yard and turn it into a soupy mess.
Another student is asking about the amount of food that we grow. So much food here. So maybe if they're asking about how can we grow so much food? So maybe talk a little bit about the land that we have here and maybe our water that enables us to do that.
You should know that all the water we use to farm in this valley comes from the Colorado River. And it's brought here by a canal that was built around the turn of the century. Otherwise, we would still be just a few small desert towns in the middle of a desert without all this farming. We farm approximately 400,000 acres or more of ground in Imperial Valley. During the winter, all the vegetable companies move down here, and we're called the salad bowl of the country during the winter because that's where most of your leafy vegetables come from: carrots, broccoli, cauliflower, and even somebody grows okra around here. You know what okra is.
We always try to describe an acre of land as about the size of a football field. So boys and girls, if you could imagine 400,000 plus football fields, that's how we can grow so much food because we have so much land here in Imperial Valley. We always teach Mr. Snow about My Plate and about good nutrition and different food groups. And so corn is kind of a tricky one. So they're asking if corn is a grain.
Yeah, so it's actually a good question. So corn is indeed a grain. It's the most important grain we grow in this country. And the corn, like wheat, is actually from the grass family. And of course, cattle love grass. And corn, as a member of the grass family, the cattle love the corn. A lot of people think corn isn't natural to feed to cattle, but in fact, it very much is. I see another one on here about, do I ride horses? Yes. So my favorite animal, of course, is my dog, Nick, then horses, and then cattle.
So don't farmers sometimes use dogs working with animals?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I bought my Nick to work her, and I started training her to work, and then I started liking her more as a pet, and I didn't want to get her face kicked in by a steer, so she is now just a pet who has taken over my pickup truck and allows me to chauffeur her around, I guess. And of course, my next favorite animal is a horse. And it really has nothing to do with cattle. It has more to do just what horses are capable of and how athletic they are and how fun it is to train them. It's just a nice lifestyle to be around horses and dogs.
Can you share with us what are name some of the beef products that we eat, like from animals? I know that one of the things that farmers and ranchers do is really try to use everything in the whole animal. So what are some of the products that we would know of that come from beef cattle?
Okay, so one thing we say about cattle is we don't waste anything except the moo. Last night in Vaughn's, they were selling cow feet. And I can't imagine what dish that was for, but I passed on it. Your carne asada comes from beef. Your hamburger, of course, comes from beef. Some of you probably eat tri-tips. They come from beef. If any of you eat tripa or tripe, that's the stomach lining of beef. It's what's in your menudo. They use beef to make heart valves for humans. So if my heart valve went bad and they put a new one in me, it probably came from a cow.
And the hide?
And the hide, the biggest market for the hide is, of course, car seats. Did you guys know that?
No.
So car seats drive the hide market. So when the economy is good and everybody's buying a new car, it's good. It's good for the hides. When the economy is bad and nobody's buying a car, the hides stack up. I have a question here. It says, and are you popular?
Oh, very.
From Linda. My answer is yes, Linda, I am popular.
Mr. Snow is very well known here in the Valley, and he serves on a lot of organizations, our Farm Bureau and cattle ranchers. So yes, he's a very popular person. Getting back to bacon, most people think bacon comes from pigs, which we normally does, but is there beef bacon also?
Yes, and it's good. I had some up at One World Beef when I went there on a tour. They gave us a meal. One World Beef, if you kids don't know, is where our cattle are harvested and prepared to become food. They served me some beef bacon, and it was absolutely incredibly good, but it's still not out there commercially. So all the bacon we eat is either from pork and some bacon now from turkey.
All right, we're going to wrap up here in the last minute or so. So if there's any final words you have for us just about agriculture and encouraging teachers as well as students to learn more about agriculture in Imperial Valley.
Yes, I guess I'd like to re-emphasize that you don't need to come from a farm family to farm. You might have to work harder at it, but that's okay too. And it's a wonderful occupation to get into and to work for and to get experience. So I would encourage anybody who is interested at all in agriculture is to make friends with a farmer. Ask them for work during the summer. There's usually lots of work in the summer in the hay fields. And just keep at it. We have our Go Join 4-H, our FFA.
Great. That's great advice. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, Mr. Snow. We appreciate everything you do for agriculture. We appreciate you raising our food. And next time we have a burger, I hope everyone thinks of you and thanks you. Also, I want to remind all the teachers and students that we have many resources on our website. So with that, I'm going to close it out. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.